Hello my friends and welcome to Worship Basics, and today we're going to look at key signature basics for worship. If you are playing, your elevation worship, Chris Tomlin, Hillsong, Bethel, and like whatever contemporary stuff that you and your church are writing, which you totally should do, write for your people. It's a small plug. Then this is going to help you think about that. All right, so what we're going to start with is I have up here a basic keyboard drawn out. I know that not everyone is trying to learn the keyboard. However, I think that the keyboard is like set up in a way to really show us the notes that we have available and like easily see what notes make up what key signatures. So if you're learning keys, then yay, here we are. If you're learning guitar or a different instrument, you're like on guitar, your frets are still following these. They're still going to go from this one to 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 this one, right? Going on your strings. It's just visually easier to see here. So the notes that we letter in Western music, let's be clear, this is Western music, is basically from A to G. You can see here, A all the way to G. And within that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like just letter names, we also have these 1, 2, 3, 4, did I miss one? 5. Which are named for their relation to the letter names and the key signature. It's not super important right now, like don't freak out too much about it, but essentially, if you want to count them, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 chromatic tones in Western popular music. And then it repeats. We go back to the A. You see how we did that? Repeats the next 12 of them again. All right? So we use, of those 12 tones, we use 7 of them to form a typical key signature based on a scale. I pause sometimes because there's honestly, there's kind of caveats to all of this. So if you know this stuff and you're like, but Tiffany, I know, don't worry. I know, I got you. We're doing basics today. All right. So we have 12 tones. Those 12 tones are what we would call a half step or a semitone in between them. So from an A to what we would call potentially an A sharp is a half step. From an A sharp to a B is a half step. From a B to a C is a half step. From C to a C sharp is a half step, and so on. Why did they make it so that there's no black note in between B and C and E and F? I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason, or who knows, maybe there's not. All right, so 12 tones. I'll write that up here. 12 what we would call chromatic. I'm going to say pitches, and if I use the wrong word, please forgive me. I'm not too horribly worried about perfect terminology. All right, so within that, like I said, we aren't using all 12 for every song. If we were using all 12 for every song, then no matter what you hit on your keyboard, it would sound right because you'd be using all of the notes that are available to you in Western music. And the reason I say Western music is because some other forms of music, like in Eastern music, they have essentially what are tones that go in between these half steps and semitones, and we're not talking about that here. I don't know anything about it other than that it is super cool, but yes. All right, so like I said, we have these 12 chromatic pitches, and within those we make a key signature using essentially 7 of them. This is my fancy little drum throne. All right, 7 tones or pitches in each key signature. And then like you might think about the 8th as being like the, oops, you might think about the 8th, I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear it in this video, but my children have some sort of toy over there that is like just going nuts in the middle of the night. It's fun. So, to think of this another way, because I strongly believe that different people learn in different ways. If you've ever watched The Sound of Music, or maybe you've just heard it, in major keys, we would call this do, re, mi, fa, sol, oops, la, ti. And then the reason we have the 8 kind of over here again is that we're back at do. This is the same as that, just an octave, what we would call an octave higher. Same pitch, but an octave higher. All right, so we're only gonna think about major today, which is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If you were to sing it, it would be do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. All right, so it has a very particular sound. If you sing it in a minor version of that, you have notes that sound different, right? They don't sound exactly that. That's a major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If I don't sing it flat. And in order to get those notes, you make a certain number of, remember how I said these were half steps or semitones in between each of the little keys here? You make a certain number of half steps, or putting 2 half steps together, you get a whole step. I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm just gonna tell you the letters, pitches that we're using in 2 common key signatures, all right? So we're gonna look at the key of C major and the key of G major. Here we go. I'm gonna go in front and stuff because my setup is great. So we'll do C major up here. Number 1 is C, 2 is D, and E, F, G, A, B, and then we're back to C. You may notice, if you wish, that these are all white keys on our little keyboard picture. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Okay? The key of C major on the keyboard does not play any of the black keys. All right? Unless you're doing fancy borrowing, flatting, whatever, but we're not worrying about that right now. So if you are, I don't know, you get up there one day and for whatever reason you have never touched a keyboard, but they say, hey, play keys for us today. We're playing all the songs in C major. Technically, if you just hit white keys, you're fine. It's not gonna follow the right structure, probably, if you're just randomly hitting the white keys, but we're gonna teach you how to do that. All right, our other key we're looking at is G major. Which is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then we're back to our G. Now you'll notice that once again, most of our G major pitches or keys are also white ones. G, A, B, C, D, E, and then we jump up here to this little guy here is your F sharp. and then we're back at our G again. I will write it up here for you to be able to see in all of the places that it shows up on this little keyboard. You can find it because if you notice when you're looking at a keyboard, you have this like little 2 black key and this little 3 black key bundle. The first of the 3 on your left is the F sharp, right there. So if you were to play the G major scale, which is those 7 notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, you would play G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And you can go back down. So the reason that we're looking at C major and G major, other than the fact that we only have to worry about 1 black key in both of them combined, is that if you're starting on the guitar, G major is a great place to start. In general, it's pretty darn, relatively speaking, easy to start picking up your chords in G major. And on the keyboard, C major is a great place to start because you just ignore the existence of the black keys and you just play on the white keys. So, keys players, guitar players. And that will be great for you. Now, I said that these are key signatures though. We're not just looking at the notes that make them up. We are also wanting to look at the chords that we make from those notes. The nature of a major key sounds the way it sounds because you're playing not just the notes, but you're playing the chords that fit those notes. And basically, every number, every letter in the scale can add on some notes to become a chord in that scale. Let me just go through it and hopefully it'll make some sense. So, if we look at our C chord, what you do to make all of the chords that you would use, all of the basic chords, meaning 3-note triads. A chord is on its most basic form 3 notes, okay? The way that you do that is you take your first one, whatever you want to find the chord that goes with this number 1. You take that as a C, and then you skip one, you add the E, skip one, add the G. Which means that if you're gonna play a C, the number 1 chord in the C major key signature, the number 1 chord in that is gonna be like the C, E, G. That's the number 1. I should have done it in the same color. That's my bad. So C, E, G is going to be how you make your first chord, okay? And the rules are the same for all of them. So the number 2 chord in C major, here, let me try to undo that. This is in orange. So the number 1 chord in C major starts on a C. The number 2 chord on C major starts on a D. And I'm going to pick a different color. We'll just do yellow. If you want to make that number 2 chord, I'm just going to erase these actually. Try to erase them. Okay, so we're going to make the number 2 chord. Put our rest of our picture back together. There we go. Lovely. So if we're going to make our number 2 chord, we will start here on the D. I'll just do arrows this time. Start on the D, skip 1, gets us to the F, which is the 4th one. Skip 1, A, which means that in the key of C major, our second chord is a D, F, A, or looking at the keyboard is D, F, A, we make the chords. Like we figure out what the 3 basic notes of the chords are by going 1, skip, next one, skip, next one, skip, starting on each of them. So I'm just going to tell you what they are now. If you were to do that, you would get the first chord is a major one. Oh, I totally messed up this. There we go. The second chord is what we call a minor chord. The third is also a minor. The fourth one is going to be major. The fifth one is major. 6 is minor. And the 7th chord is diminished. We rarely use that in worship music. I'm trying to think of a case where I've actually seen someone use that and actually keep it on the chart for a volunteer team, and I can't think of it. So this pattern follows for all of our key signatures, which means that in the key of G major, our first chord is G major. Second chord is A minor. Our third chord is B minor. Our fourth chord is C major. Fifth chord is D major. The sixth chord is E minor. And the seventh chord is an F sharp diminished, which we will usually write just as D-I-M. All right. So you take the name of the do, re, mi, fa, sol, and you just say this word after it. So the do on C major is a C, which means that the chord that goes with it is the C major chord, which we play with our C. Let me circle them again. Our C, our E, and our G. Because we did the fun skippy thing. All right, so that's like a lot of random stuff. This is where like, so if you didn't understand much of what we just did, that's okay. I'm gonna try to make sure I put like a mark in the video at this point, because just knowing this, even if you didn't understand how we got there, is kind of what ends up being the most important thing. All right. So when you are looking at a chord chart for worship, there's a couple ways that you might see this. Generally speaking, if you see on your little chord chart, here's your lyrics. Lyrics are cool. All right, that's your lyric. Lyrics are cool. All right, that's our lyric, right? So you'll see up here, if we're like, say we're in C major, you'll see C, and then you'll see A with a little m, okay? So that means that just the big capital letter single, that's C major. If you don't see anything after it, it just means major. And if you know you're in the key of C and you see the letter C, I should not have used that example. If you know you're in the key of C and you see the letter C, you know that, that's a major chord, because you know that in the key of C, that key signature of C major, that the C chord is a major one. Similarly, you now know that in the key of C major, if you see an A, that A chord is a minor one. Convenient thing is, you don't actually have to learn all of those chords. It'd be a good idea, but really you need 4 of them, maybe 5. We're doing basics. You don't need to know about a diminished chord. You are not going to play a diminished chord on your typical Sunday to Sunday, like CCM contemporary worship. You don't have to play this chord. forget about it. You don't need to worry about it. The chords that you are going to need to know are the 1 chord, the 4 chord, 5 chord, 6 chord. Remember how I said earlier there's a couple of ways you can see this on a chord chart? Some churches will prefer to, instead of using letters, they'll use the numbers. So instead of saying, hey, we're playing a C here, right? Or a C major chord here, right? They'll say, hey, we're playing the 1, right? Instead of saying, hey, we're gonna switch, we're gonna add an A minor in to that little moment there, they'll say, hey, we're gonna add the 6 minor, right, in there, which is part of why it's helpful to know the numbers. And they also just like give you an understanding of what's happening overall. But ultimately, like, don't worry too hard about that, especially at first, right? When you're just starting out and you just need to like start making music on your guitar, just learn these chords. On your guitar, I would say start with your G, and I teach people, and I play myself typically, what would be a C major, but no, it's okay. We would technically call it a C add 9. It's just a slightly easier way to play it. It has like a fun little flavor in it by adding a different note into the chord, but it works generally just fine as your C chord. And then D major and E minor. If you learn G major, C major, D major, and E minor, you will be able to play like, I don't know, 90% of worship songs. If you, in the key of G, use a capo. You can use your capo up to like, I am told the 7th fret. I feel like it sounds a little weird on the 7th. I kind of try not to go above the 5th if I can help it. But if you can play it up to, even out, play it through the 7th fret, you can play all the way from G up to the key of D, and you're only really missing a couple keys in there if you want. So yes, get your capo. It's a great thing. And then when you are ready to add your 5th chord, the next one to learn. So those are the essentials. 1, 4, 5, 6 are your essentials. Oh wait, that's a color I've already used. Pink. The chord that you're gonna learn next, your 5th chord to learn, is the 2. The 3 does show up, it does, in music, but not nearly as frequently as the 2. The 2's in stuff a lot, but like I said, even so, the 1, 4, 5, 6 are in music the most. And I feel like some worship leaders are going to get angry at me for telling you this, but depending on the makeup of your worship team, because you are not, hopefully, we hope that you're not the only person on your band, there are other instruments filling in other parts of the music. So if you're the bass player, you have to play what's written on the page with whatever, walks and movement you're making in between and everything, but like, you have to play what's there. But if you're the guitar player or even the keys player to some extent, and you have like a solid bass, you have solid, maybe another solid rhythm instrument or something like, guitar, the keyboard or something, some of these chords, like, they overlap enough that you can get away with playing them even if it's not what's called for. Let me give you an example. So the key, in the key of C, C major is C, E, and G, right? A minor is A, C, and E. If you notice, there is an overlap of 2 notes in the middle. The biggest thing to how something sounds is honestly, it's what's in the bass. It's what's the lowest note, which is why the bass player has to play what's written, essentially. But if the song calls for an A minor and you just haven't gotten that far yet, maybe you're just practicing, you're playing along. If a song calls for an A minor and you're playing on Sunday, please learn an A minor. But let's say you're practicing and you're just really trying to get those, C, F, and G. You're trying to get those really solid. Where it says A minor, you could play that C and it won't sound quite right. I'm not gonna lie. It's not gonna sound exactly the same, but there will be enough similarity that you can at least practice through it, right? Because there's so much, like, they don't clash with each other. An A minor and a C major don't clash with each other because they share these two in the middle. And even further than that, a very popular way to play your number 6 minor is with what we would call the 7th note, which is the G. Which means that if you're playing a C on your keyboard here, you're playing C, E, G, and you need to switch to an A minor, you can literally do that and stick your finger on the A and you have an A minor with that 7th up there. Don't worry too hard about 7ths. If you see 7ths on your paper, we are at the ignore anything that doesn't say a letter and a little m kind of thing, right? But a little tidbit there for you. Okay, key signature basics. So we now know that if we are playing in the key of C, we can play C, F, G, A minor, and D minor. If we're playing the key of G major, we can play G, C, D, E minor, A minor. And we'll cover those 5 chords will cover like 99% of what you're gonna do. Typically, just to go like a teeny bit further, when we're talking about key signature, the reason that I'm saying these are the chords that you need to learn is because modern worship music, as well as like most pop music, very, very strongly emphasize the use of 1, 4, 5. This means that as you start expanding to other key signatures within the major types of signatures, you can focus your learning on 1, 4, 5. You don't have to make sure that you can play the entire scale on your keyboard or on your guitar. You don't need to make sure you can play every single chord that there is. You need to make sure that you can play in whichever key you want to learn in. 1, 4, 5, and 6. And then you're going to do the 2 when you have the bandwidth. Once you feel good with 1, 4, 5, you add the 6. Once you feel good with 6, you add the 2. And now you can play most songs in modern worship. For those who wish to go a teeny bit further and wish to be able to figure out all of the notes and therefore the chords that you would find in every major key, I will tell you that the way we get the notes that are in the key is from the major scale. And a major scale is very, very specifically made to be a certain number of jumps, essentially. In music, we call any sort of jump from one note to another note, we call it an interval. So if we go from do, re to re is a whole step. Do, re, mi, do to re is a whole step, re to mi is a whole step, all right? So I'm gonna write it in here in blue. This is only for those who are like, I just really want to be able to understand it all. So if you, especially if you're already overwhelmed, just turn the video off now, and just remember 1, 4, 5. But for those of you who are like, yes, give me more, the interval from do to re is a whole step. Re to mi is a whole step. Mi to fa is a half step. And you can see that because when you look at the key of C from do to re, there's one in between. From re to mi, there's one in between. From mi to fa, there's none in between. Yeah? So then, following this, fa to sol is a whole step. Sol to la, whole step. La to ti, whole step. And then from ti back to do, if we're still going up, is a half step. Which means that, to write it over here, so you can just like, if you want to like think about it, the intervals of major scale are whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So you can pick any key, any note, even the black ones. We start keys, like start key signatures and scales up here in the black notes too. If you pick any of them, if you do this pattern, you will get a major scale, which tells you the pitches, the keys that are in your key signature and that build your chords structure, right? Here's an example. Let's go something, let's do A, because we have like a little space over here that doesn't have like stuff written on it yet. So, key of A. I don't have any place to write over here anymore. Maybe I'll go to the other side. No, wait, actually I can't because of the frame. Sorry. All right, key of A. Here we go. When you say key of whatever, that's what you start with. So key of A, the number one, the do is A. If we do a whole step, which means we have to skip one, we skip the black one, and we go to the next one, B. Skip, so there's no black one here, which means we have to skip this one. We go up here, to C sharp. From there, we do, this was a whole step, our next is a half step, which is no skip, so the next one is a D. And then whole step, E, and then whole step. So it means we don't have a black one in the middle here, so we have to skip the white one. E, skip, up here. There's an F sharp in that one as well. I'm like thinking, am I missing something? Oh no, we're good. And then, so we had whole step, half step, whole step, another whole step, which means we're over here at a G sharp. Okay, that's this black one right here. That's it's kind of half cut off. Okay, there we go, G sharp. And now we're back to our A. It's a half step from the G sharp to the A. So, in the key of A, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and we're back to do. So, we also can think of that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, it's getting super tight up here. All right, 7. Now, pause for a second and remind yourself, what are the chords that you want to learn first in any key signature that you have chosen to expand your horizons to? I'm gonna do second. Okay, you got your answer? 1, 4, 5, and then 6, right? Which means that you're gonna learn A, and that one chord is always a major. Where to write it? We'll get rid of this. We don't need it. Okay, so here we go. A major. The 1 is A. Our next chord we're going to learn is the 4. D. 5. E. 6 minor. We'll put the little M for minor because that's always it's the minor chord. Isn't number 6 up here? Your La, F sharp, minor. And then when you get to expand to your 2, which is, you know, kind of in the middle here, you're going to this Re, which is a B minor. Put that one in parentheses because that's your last one that you're going to learn as you're doing this. Cool. Just because I kept saying it, but I didn't explain it. The little hashtag dude there is how we indicate sharp, which means essentially half a step higher than. So a C sharp is half a step, see, higher than a C, is a C sharp. The other thing you will see is flats, and honestly sharp keys, I don't know why, but they just like are easier to think in, but sometimes there are flat keys. So we write a flat like this with kind of like a little B, and flat means half a step lower than, which means that, for example, a common key that you might think about is the key of B flat, which would start half a step lower than a B. Yeah, don't worry too hard about flats. It is just helpful to know, like, if you're going to be playing in the key of G and you're using your capo, if your worship leader tells you, hey, we're going to do this song in B flat, well, you're playing in the key of G, so you're going to use your capo. Each fret is a half step. So that means that you have to, if you want to get from G to B flat, you're going to go 1, 2, 3. You're going to put your capo on the 3rd fret. And that way, when you play in G, it will come out in B flat. Cool. All right, I think that's all I have for tonight. And I know that was a lot. Thank you for diving through it with me. You might need to watch the video, like rewatch the pieces that like didn't make sense or that I went too fast. Please, please, please feel free to ask me questions. And, you know, maybe like watch the video in like little bits and pieces. Decide that you're going to focus on one thing. I included like a lot. I know it says basics and like look how much I wrote. So I included a lot, but the big thing is like all of these are like little pieces that you can learn at one at a time. So if you think about and learn about, okay, 1, 4, 5, 6, you'll start seeing that on your papers. You'll start seeing like, oh, I have a C, F, G, A minor. Oh, cool. You know, if you are learning the guitar, those are my guitar students, and we are just like hanging in the key of G forever, you now know that the chords that we learned last week are the 1 chord, which is the G, modification of the C chord, which is that 4 chord. And we also, if you remember right, and sorry for those who didn't do this, but we also played with what was a D sus thing. That was what we did towards the end with our little pinky exercise for those who were there. The D chord is your 5. So you can already play, like we talked about in that class, you can already play songs that just go between the 1 and the 4. And there's more songs than you think that do that. And if you're practicing your pinky stuff and everything, you can start getting this D added in there, you know. We're gonna add the E minor soon, and the A minor. It's gonna be great. But yes, please feel free to ask me questions. Everyone learns differently, all right? So if this made no sense to you, that's okay. Let's like jump on a phone call or a Zoom or a FaceTime, and let's like help you understand what you're seeing on your chord chart in the way that will work for you. All right, cool. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Bye.